Hey folks, welcome back to Mark Kelly Farm. If you've been following along here on the homestead, you know we've got a pig that we're processing here on the ranch, and we did the preparation the other day is the last video you saw. Today we're going to do the breakdown, the cut and wrap of this animal. Let me show you kind of what we have set up here. Stick around. All right, we got our two halves here. We have our cutting table here that's on wheels. We have our bucket for our ham hocks and hams later. We have our big stainless steel table topper here that we can set our cuts of meat out on and our primals when we get them separated. We have a few tools here that we're going to be using, a couple knives, a meat hook, kind of a break-in knife, our little meat saw, some rubber gloves, and all of our bags that we can package in. We've got Kelly with us here today as well. Everybody loves to see Kelly. Got a lot of wind going on. It's really chilly out here. We've had the meat cooling down for 2 days. It wasn't quite cold enough yesterday when I checked it, but a good 2-day hang. We've been getting about 19 degrees overnight and mid-40s during the day, and that's perfect hanging weather, and it hasn't frozen on us, so it's going to work out real well. So our first order of business is to cut this into primals. This is our ham back here, this is our front shoulder, and this is our loin section here. So we're going to come back past the third rib here, which is right behind the front shoulder, and we're going to cut through this bone, and that's already cut. So then we'll come up here to the spine, right here, right in line with that. Really easy with this handsaw. You can feel when it's all the way through. And we're there. So the rest of this we'll cut with a knife because we're in between the rib and the rest of it meat. Let me get my breakdown knife here. So we'll come right in between that rib. Meat is nice and cold, which is what we want, which makes it harder to cut. There we go. Let me come around on this side and connect that. Okay, you can see how that broke right through. Come through here. Nice long cuts if you can. We're just below, or just above freezing on this meat, so it's not as easy to get through. That outer portion is darn near frozen. Okay, so this is our front shoulder section. We're going to put it over here on our staging table real quick, right there. Now we're going to do pretty much the same thing here with the ham, even though we don't have any ribs to look at. But you want to make sure that you're not cutting through your tenderloin. Your tenderloin goes up in here a little ways, so we're going to remove this tenderloin, and we're also going to remove our skirt steak right here. So I'm going to trim off this excess right here, get that out of the way. Here's our skirt steak. We're going to stay right along those ribs and pull our skirt steak out. Score the back side out of that. It's not the easiest thing to get to because it's in down behind those ribs. Stay right along that rib. And there's our skirt steak. Same place on a beef. Fantastic piece of meat for tacos. We'll trim this up and we'll package that separately. So we've got our skirt out. So now we want to take our tenderloin out, which is right here underneath the spine. So the tenderloin comes clear up into here. So we'll get in here underneath these bones and we're going to hug those bones. Barely nicking the back of those bones back there. And then we can curve and go down. This is the tenderest piece of meat on this animal, on any animal, really. And it'll peel right out. On a beef, this would be your filet mignon right there. Fantastic, tender piece of meat. So we have our tenderloin out of there. So now we can go ahead and cut our ham off. We'll cut down as far as we can with the knife. Kind of look where the loin section and the hams separate right there. So we're going to go right in there. And then we'll come over here with the saw. See where your last vertebrae is here? We're going to be just below that. Okay, you can feel we're all the way through the bone. Come in here with our knife, and our ham is separated. We'll put our ham over on the table. So now, what we want to do is we want to separate our loin section from the belly. So if you can see a line right down the bottom of this vertebrae, that's kind of what we're going to want to follow. So we're going to start with our handsaw right here, and we're going to come across all these ribs. There's our last rib. The rest of that we'll cut with a knife. So we can actually score that now, get down where we need to be. And a little bit of that bone there. So right down, straight down there. Now as soon as we get the other side cut, then we can finish off with the knife with that. So we want to connect that right here. So angle your saw down, and then it'll just go right through those ribs. And there's those ribs. So that's going to come apart. Here's my knife over here. So we'll connect that with a nice long cut all the way through there. You don't want to hack at your meat. All right, there's our belly section, complete with our spare rib section. We're going to put that back over here. You can see our bacon down here on the bottom. So now, here's our loin section. If you were going to do bone-in pork chops, you could put this on a bandsaw and just cut your pork chops however thick you want to cut them. And those would be your bone-in pork chops. Most people will take this chine bone off. They would come in here right on the top of these ribs and just cut that chine bone right off of there. but it doesn't hurt. You can leave it on if you're doing bone-in pork chops. However, we're going to do boneless pork chops. So what we're going to do is we're going to carve our whole loin off of this rib section, and this section right here would be your baby back ribs. So we're going to save the baby back ribs. So all this excess stuff here can come off and go into the bucket. That can go into our shrimp bucket. I don't want to waste any of it. So let's take our small knife and we're going to start right underneath these ribs, and we're going to hug those ribs just like that. You want to make sure your knife is sliding right along those ribs. Rotate it back and forth if you have to. And then there's our last rib. We'll just connect it right there. We have this section here we need to get under. Right back to the spine. All right. So see how that curves around? That's where you want to be. Just start peeling these ribs back with your fingers as you go, staying right along those ribs. Your knife won't cut through to get you because it's got all those bones right there. So now that we've got this side loose, we'll come over here to the other side. Let me turn around so we have good light. So here's all of our chine bones here. We have a little bone here. Get that out of there. So we want to come right along the backs of these. We're following those bones as well. Now on a deer, we do this as it's hanging. So this will start to peel out also. You can feel your knife dragging on those bones underneath. So now, let me get this end loose down here. So now we can start rolling this loin out. So you're going to go down in the back just to where you hit those bones, and it'll start rolling right out of there. You're just nicking the meat right along that spine right there. We've got a little connectivity going on up here, so we'll have to wiggle around just like that. There is our spine bone. We'll come in here and we'll trim all this up later and get whatever we can off of there for our grind. We're going to come cut our baby back ribs off later. So we have our loin section here. We're going to trim just a little, make sure it's nice and clean and straight. Probably going to cut this end off here and square it up. That can make some nice country style spare ribs. Got those 2 bones, trim. So anything else hanging off here that doesn't look attractive, we're going to square this off. We have a little bone right there we're going to get rid of. Like that. We'll make some nice country style spare ribs out of that as well. So now we have our loin section free. All you need to do now is determine how thick you want your pork chops. We like them about 1 inch thick. So nice long strokes. And you have a beautiful pork chop. Keep your knife sharp. We have a sharpener here with us where we can screw this blade up every now and then. And we'll come back when we got all these cut. Before we're done, we're going to take our ribs, our baby backs that we just cut off of the spine, and our spare ribs. I like to take my little hook, but you can use the tip of a knife. You get underneath here and grab that membrane and then peel this membrane off the back bone side of the ribs. It's a little slimy. You can't get it. Grab a piece of like a towel or something and you can grab it. But that membrane comes right off of the ribs. If it leaves just a little piece, that's fine. But now when you dry rub these ribs, you can dry rub this side and the flavor will actually go into the meat. All right, we have our belly section back up here on the table. So what we want to do now is we want to separate our spare ribs right here from our belly. Now when you get these in the store, that skirt steak will probably be attached to your spare ribs. If it is, that's bonus. You can cut that off and save it for something else, or just leave it on your ribs and you got more meat on your ribs. So to carve these out is just like we did the other ribs. You're going to come underneath here, you're going to stay right along those ribs, feeling them with your knife as you go. And then once you get to the bottom, you're going to kind of want to rotate up. You can see how the rib comes up. You want to stay right there in that joint. Come out of there, go down as far as you can. And then we'll continue to work our way down. Being very careful, because you carve into your bacon, you're going to lose that good bacon, and we don't want to do that. The more meat you leave on your ribs, the less meat you have on your bacon. You can feel your last rib right there. Now, there's some cartilage bones down in here. So you want to kind of feel where those things are at. And then once we start scoring down, we're going to try to come up underneath those to where they stay with the rib section. Right underneath that last rib, staying right along those bones. Just work it out slow. You'll have some beautiful bacon when you're done. We're getting down into that cartilage. So once you find it, you need to be underneath it. Just like that. All right, our ribs are peeled out. We have a little flap here that we can take off. There's that little cartilage bone in there. We'll go ahead and trim that off. Throw that in the bucket. That can go in our trim. You don't waste any little meat. Now feel around in here. There's some meat left on here. You'll have really nice ribs if you leave that. Your cartilage is kind of more in here. So you can trim this off like we're going to do. Right down through there. And that's what gives you, it's called a St. Louis style rib with the bottom cartilage taken off of it. It's a real beautiful rib. I like them much better like this because when I eat this, I don't want this cartilage in my mouth when I'm chewing that. So make sure you feel around in here. See these little cartilage pieces here? You can kind of cut down between them. We don't want that to go into the grind. So. Most of meat processing, folks, is just taking meat off the bone. If that's all you do, if you don't know how to do anything else, that's all you need to do. Then you got usable meat. That's going to go in the bin. We're not going to get too crazy trimming this. We can do this off camera. That's mostly cartilage. We have some on here we can save. That's mostly cartilage. All right, trim bucket, trim bucket. Now, when I put stuff in the trim bucket, I make it so it feeds through the grinder. So that'll feed right on through the grinder like that. That way you don't have to go through and do it later. It's ready to go when you are. So look at our bacon. Look at how thick, crazy thick that bacon is right there. You don't need bacon that thick. However, can you make bacon that thick? Absolutely. But I want kind of an even strip of bacon across there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and square this bacon off like that. That's beautiful trim meat right there for grind. And we're going to do the same thing with the rest of this belly. See how we're real thick right here? Kind of where our flank is on here. So we want to be down about right here. And plus there's a little bone here. We can trim out of there. So this big thick section here, we're going to come in here like this. Some of you are going to think I'm crazy. Oh, make that bacon thick. But I want a nice even slab. That way it brines evenly, cooks evenly when we're smoking it. It'll all come to temperature kind of at the same time. And it's just a lot easier to do. You're not going to have half of your bacon done and getting dry while you're waiting for the other half to cook. All right, you can see that we have our beautiful pork belly right here. We've got it squared up and trimmed. Now, you don't have to turn this into bacon. This cooks really well on the barbecue, and you can make burnt ends out of this. Fantastic stuff. You could do some pork belly strips and cook those on the barbecue with some barbecue sauce. Would be fantastic. But look at this bacon, folks. Look at that beautiful bacon that we're going to get. So let's throw this over on the table. All right, we got our front shoulder that we're going to take care of right now. You can see we still have part of the ribs in here. So we're going to take our knife and we're going to follow right along those ribs. Just like that. You can See how those are coming out? Now you can feel right here, there's a meat section and a seam. We're going to catch that in there, and then we're going to come up underneath this bone here, just like this. And then that'll pretty much bust right out of there. Now we have part of a bone left right there. So feel around. Anything that looks undesirable, you're going to trim off of there. The rest of that looks pretty good. Let's trim off just a little bit of this. Not a lot. So now we want another hock off of here. So what I'm going to do is kind of this, see this seam right here? We're going to take our knife and we're going to go all the way around, all the way down to the bone. And then we'll get our saw. Alright, we're all the way through that. Take our big breaking knife and go all the way through it. Okay, we have our big shoulder here. We're going to take any of this old dry stuff off of here. Cleaning that up. We have our hock right here. So we're going to trim this flat piece off right here. On a beef, this would be kind of your tri-tip roast right here. So that would be your beef tri-tip if it was a beef. Good piece of meat. You can save it as a pork tri-tip. So anything extra on this hock, we're going to take off of there. That goes into the grind bucket. And then I think I'm going to square that off too. All right, there's our nice other hock. Really good pot of beans. Now, you could actually make two smaller ones out of this, but we're going to leave that whole. There's our pork tri-tip, but that's going to go in the grind. So we have our big shoulder here. Now, this is what we make pulled pork out of. You could leave this whole, but just for Kelly and I, this is a huge roast. We'd have to have a lot of people over to take care of this. Of course, the way we love pulled pork, we could probably get it done. So what I want to do with this is I want to come down, break it in half, and make two roasts out of it. So this is going to take a little bit of sawing to get this done. We'll find where our bones are at, right there. So let's cut through with our knife first, get as far as we can go. Now this is going to take a minute to saw because I got that big H bone in there. Oh, hit the bucket dropped. Okay, you can feel it all the way through. So now we got two nice pork shoulder roasts that we can make pulled pork out of. We'll trim it up real nice, clean it up, and vacuum seal them. Got another real nice hock that we're going to smoke. Now, here's our big ham. I'm going to take just this top portion off of the ham here, kind of round it up. Just like that, make an attractive ham. All this fat looks good. So again, make that so it'll go through the grinder. It's all real good fat. Maybe a little dry out here on the outside. We can just shave that right off like you're filleting a fish. Like that. Beautiful sausage meat. So here's our ham. There's a bone right here that we could trim out. And then like I said, we're going to come in here and split this in two right down that femur bone. And it'll give us two nice big ham roasts. All right, so find your bone down here and your bone up here. You're going to follow your femur bone, and then you're going to carve your femur bone out like that. And then you got the what's left of your tailbone up here in the top. So now this is a completely boneless ham. So what we want to do now is we could actually make this into like 3 hams, which would be pretty good. Excuse me. So we'll come right along this seam right here. There's one. We'll trim it up just a little bit. Now this is the area that's really hard to get to when you're brining, and you'll end up with an area inside your ham that's uncured, and you don't want that. So by doing this, you're allowing that brine to get all the way down in this meat, and it'll brine in half the time, and you'll have a real good product. So this little tail right here, we're going to take that off, and guess where that's going? That's going to sausage. Beautiful sausage. So we have some stocking net bags that we purchased, and this ham will go in that bag like this and keep it nice and tight when we smoke it, and you'll have a nice little ham there that we can consume in, 4 or 5 days instead of 2 weeks. So let's take the rest of our ham and see what we want to do with this. Let's get some of this nasty meat that's next to the bone in there. Just trim that out. That's a good piece there. So we have another little bit of cartilage right there. So we'll go down right beside that. Trim that out of there. That goes into our grind. So we have this big ham left. Again, we can do this into a lot larger sized ham. We can roll this baby up in that bag and make a real big ham out of it. But again, we don't need a ham this big. So we're going to trim this thing up make it look real good. See, that'll roll up like that. I think I want to take this tip off right here. That's going to go into grind. We'll just clean it up and make it the best looking ham we can. I think I even want to take this section off here. We got a fairly large throat on our grinder, but this stuff will go right in. So, I think this here is going to be our ham now. So look at that. That'll be a real nice ham. We'll put it in that bag. We'll brine this thing, and then hold it nice and tight. And that'll be a beautiful ham. So, other than trimming some of these bones up that we have right here, we're pretty much it. So we're going to bring you back and I'll show you the table of all of our cuts. All right, here's a look at our final cuts. And if you look at this, consider it double, because this is only half of our hog right here. So we have our spare ribs, our St. Louis style spare ribs. We have our baby back ribs. We have our beautiful pork skirt steak, which is going to be fantastic for street tacos. Here's our pork tenderloin, our beautiful slab of bacon. We have our 2 ham roasts here that we're going to make boneless hams out of. We have our 2 hocks that we're going to make smoked ham hocks with. And we have our 2 shoulder roasts that we're going to make pulled pork with. And we have all of our beautiful loin chops. And then look at all of our beautiful sausage meat in here, folks. That's going to be beautiful sausage, and again, that's going to be double. Now, if we go over and look at our scrap bin, you can see what little goes in the bin. That's out of a whole half of a hog, and that's just bones and gristle right there, folks. All right, folks, before we close out this video, I wanted to give you some totals. We started out with a 200-pound hog on the hoof. We ended up with 140 pounds of meat. That's after we were completely done, vacuum sealed everything. 140 pounds. So 200 divided by 140, that's about $1.42 per pound. You're not going to find pork in the store, especially those premium cuts, all of the baby back ribs, and those center cut chops and all that. You're not going to find it for $1.40 a pound. You might find some pork shoulder, bone-in pork shoulder, for maybe $2 a pound if you're lucky. So just to show you what the numbers are and how much money you can save. All right, folks, that's about does it. We're going to do the other half of this hog. While I do that, Kelly is going to take the stuff that's already cut. She'll package it up and vacuum seal it in the house. And then when I'm done with this, she'll come out and get the rest of that. So that's how we do our hogs. We hope you enjoyed this video. We hope you learned something from it and not be afraid to get out and do this stuff yourself. It's not hard. And even if you're doing it wrong, at least you're still doing it. So till next time, stay safe, stay healthy. We love you guys. We'll see you on the next video when we do some hams and bacon and the hocks and all that. We'll do another video on that. See you later.
Bye.